In this video, I'm doing a drawing of the white mug shown on the left of the screen. First, I have to find the shape of the mug, so you'll see me doing a lot of thinking lines and establishing the measurements through various methods. Then I do a lot of contour lines and cross contour lines to show how you can really show the volume of the form and how those lines really create a sense of movement and groundedness and energy on the drawing. I'm paying attention to the negative space right here to help me understand the shape. And I'm paying attention to the shapes, like there's this interesting curvy triangle here that I'm capturing. And then it meets up with this other curve that goes all the way to the very side of the mug. And things narrow out from my perspective anyway. I know that rationally they don't actually narrow out, but from how I am seeing it from my angle, I know that it looks like it's narrower. And that's all that I'm worrying about. It's how it looks. And then again, just like we had this sort of cool triangle shape that met just above the bottom of the cup, mug. I guess this is a mug. And now I'm going to step backward to see, how am I doing? How does this look as a believable drawing? Does this look like what I'm looking at here? And mostly it's good. I'm definitely still trying to figure out what's happening with that handle. I'm going to notice the negative space in here and notice that the handle doesn't just, I see that it sort of angles down when I laid my pencil on the line. And it sticks out and curves around. But I'm also tuning into this shape of the negative space. And actually, I think I need to bring this whole thing up a little bit higher. So I'm not going to get attached to that line. I'm just going to erase it out. Keep on going. Which probably means that these lines are going to be too low. This is starting to be a little confusing. And then where that triangle points down, it points straight at this triangle. So this is a guideline, so to speak, that I can use. If I have an imaginary line shooting through here, I can line up this point at the top of the triangle with the point at the bottom of the triangle that's formed at the edge of the cup. And noticing that the edge of my cup quite connects with that triangle a little further in, so I need to move this line slightly inward. And then when I have this extension, I can also study what kind of half moon shape is made. And it's quite oblong, which makes me think that my ellipsis is a little too squished and I need to widen it out. But I'll step back to get a view. see how I'm doing. I think we're doing okay. Except this was closing in, so I'm gonna draw it out as I know it would go all the way to this edge. So back to resolving this, tuning into the shape that this makes as it gets real narrow, or it appears to be real narrow. And now I'm curious about this measurement compared here, so I'm going to take it at its widest point. So at its widest point here, I'm getting 2 and a little at my actual one. 1, 2. So I should have a little here, which either means that this is too wide or this is too narrow. So I'm going to take a step back to get a better view of my drawing. And now my hands have so much graphite on them, I can actually smudge a line in, and my eraser too. So I can start to see what it would look like just by sketching with the smudging side of my eraser. So now I'm going to take a step back again. And as I was back there, I saw how unresolved the edge of this handle is. So I'm going to use my eraser, and I have to use it for a while because now it's all sort of covered in graphite. So I have to use it for a while before it'll start to actually remove some lines. And I have my really graphite covered part of the pencil, which I used to actually draw with and just smudge a line to make it stronger or more blended together. And I like to have that smudging tool part, but I also like to have a part that can actually erase when I need to erase something. So sometimes I'll even just erase on blank paper just to clean my eraser. So that's what you see me doing there. And that only cleaned part of it, so I'll keep going, tilt it up a little. And that'll leave a little smudge, so I could be thinking about how that could be part of my drawing and even leave that smudge maybe down below where I know I have a shadow. And I'm looking at the shape that this negative space makes. It's almost like an ear. And it appears to me to be a little wide. It should be a little wider. Which makes me think I need to bring in my line here. And then I'm realizing that yes, I do need to bring this in a little bit because this triangle that I've described a couple times, this triangle is bisected a little bit closer to the inside of the cup. And so I'm just getting lost in all the lines, so I'm going to erase back out again. And all these lines that I'm building up and building up, they become part of the energy of the drawing. So just start to think of them as useful and almost like a shimmering movement to the piece. Even though this mug is very stationary and it's not moving anywhere at the moment, it still has a sense of potential movement. Or I hope it does. I hope by the time I'm done it does. And now I wanted to show you contour drawings. So all of this work up till now was establishing the shape of the mug. But now I want to show you about cross contour lines. So these outside lines, these are contours of the mug. But we also know that this is not just a flat space. We know that this is a curved space. So I can draw contours across this to show this as a curved shape. And I'm not trying to do a shaded drawing, so I'm not going to do a ton of cross contours to suggest shading, but that can start to happen really naturally, because not only do we know that this is a curve of a mug, and then on the inside it's curved the other way, concave and convex, but there's also these straight lines that show us the side of the mug. And this is in a way a perspective drawing, because we're seeing this. If we were looking straight down on the mug, it would be a perfect circle, but now it's an ellipsis. So this is a perspective drawing with a vanishing point. Eventually this would, if we were imagining, let's see, a square, imagining that this had a square around it. So we understood this as a perspective drawing. This would point out toward our vanishing point. And wherever these lines converge, way up here would be our vanishing point. So we have we want to show the contour lines, though, to help us understand this mug as curved, three-dimensional thing. So I'll just get rid of those vanishing point lines. Back to how this is a perspective drawing, we know that things closer to us appear larger and things farther away appear smaller. So if I were to imagine that this mug had a line spaced every quarter of an inch, as I approach the side, those lines will appear to be closer together. And so as a drawer, I can make use of that optical illusion by giving more lines. And then as I drew down, the lines sort of ended in nowhere. And so as I lift my pencil up, I can start at this grounded, I want this to look like it's touching the earth, such as it is. And I'll use my smudgy fingers to give us some contour lines of the table itself. Just even smudging, and I can use this smudgy part of the eraser to suggest the ground that this mug rests upon. And then to make the mug appear to come forward, this handle we know is floating out in space. There's a little bit of room between the handle and the bottom. So I'll erase there, and I'll even erase a tiny bit right there to suggest that little bit of space between the handle and the bottom of the mug. And then I should do the same up here. So I like to keep part of my eraser very square and part of it very rounded for erasing out more vigorously. And then I keep this part more square for precision things. And as your eraser gets older, this is still relatively new, you might need to use your X-Acto knife to cut that tight angle. And then I'm erasing a little too much, so I'm adding back in some lines. but I still want that little bit of space to help you understand that the handle is in front of the side. And I'll emphasize this line a bit to help you see that. So back to our contour lines though, and how I want to lift up so that I have that grounded energy moving up through the mug. But still I'm adding more lines on the side to help you see this as an object in space. And then we would also have lines coming up from the inside of the mug. And when I get a little sloppy and they go crooked, it doesn't really help things look very dimensional. And here I am letting the lines sort of fade out, and that's because I want to suggest that space, that atmosphere, if you will, between the front rim of the mug and the back wall of it. So by not having my lines hit all the way, I can help you know that there's a little bit of space in there. And I think I erased a few too many, so I'm adding some back in. And I can work on showing the thickness of this rim in a few different ways, but since we're talking about contour lines today, I'm going to use contour lines to show the curvature of thickness. Here I think the lines were following perspective logic, but here I got a little too fast and sloppy in that. I kept that angle, but really these lines would be basically straight at the center. They'd be curving in toward vanishing point right, and they'd be curving out toward the left all the way at the end, coming to closer to center as I get to the middle. So I'm just going to overlay, and I might go back in, probably go back in and erase. And then we have these lines too. Same idea where the curve switches. So I want to help you understand the curving that's happening here. So these aren't lines that I'm observing. I'm creating lines as if I'm wrapping around the shape of the handle. And as if this is a perspective drawing, but I'm trying to create lines that make sense on many different levels. Though not a shading. This is not a shaded drawing. If I was shading, this would be very dark in here, and that could be a useful effect to help soften those lines and to create more of a sense of depth. But I really want to just show you contour lines for this, so I'm not going to get too worried about that. And here the handle is almost flat on top, and yet it's these flat lines lead toward the vanishing point, which remember is way up here. So it's really key to have that sense of dimension. And the curve of these lines are fighting with each other a little bit, but maybe that will help describe the shape, although I think not so much. And then I realized I never erased out some of my extra lines, which I don't mind entirely, but since I'm noticing, I'm gonna tighten that up. resolve that. And then this contour comes forward, is closer to me than that back part, so I'm going to make it darker. This also has a contour line that feeds right up into the vertical, and so I'll draw those in. But I want to help you know that this is the corner, so I'm going to make it a little darker. It's a little bit closer to me. But I don't want to overwhelm that area with darkness because it starts to make a strange dimensionality. So I'll smudge some of that out. And then with my cleaner eraser, which I need to clean up, so I'm going to keep adding my lines here. I will lighten up that darker spot, which was accidentally suggesting something that I didn't mean to suggest in terms of dimension. It wasn't there. Okay, so I could keep going on this for sure, but I think I'm good to leave it at that by seeing this corner. You can always go further with refining and making a drawing come to life to really finish it and resolve a three-dimensional seeming space. You can draw with my eraser almost as much as I'm drawing with my pencil.